After 40 plus hours of testing, I finally have some facts for you guys on the new blue circle damage increase.
Oh gosh, you're gonna die. You're gonna die.
Okay, so first the good news. The good news is I actually have some concrete figures on the new blue circle damage model or increase. The bad news is this is not a completely conclusive study or wrapped up, stamped and sealed per se. I mean, you're not gonna get to the end of it and be like, okay, so that means bing, boom, pop, pow, got it. I get it. That being said, I have scoured the internet every day for someone with inside information or access to private servers, etc. to give us some hard facts on this new change so I could just point you to them, but there's literally no information out there. So I took matters into my own hands and painstakingly collected some data for you guys. Now first, it's important we do a quick overview of the previous blue circle damage because it still applies and acts as a base for everything else. I'm not going to go over size, speed, things like that because none of that changed and I really don't think it's as important as the damage anyway. Circle pops up on the map, you gotta get inside it. Simple as that. Now remember, the circle ticks away at your health once every second and it dishes out that damage at the exact same time to everyone on the server who is inside the blue, like a pulse of electricity every second. Alright, so circle 1 refers to the blue zone that first shows up on the screen until the moment it connects with the first white circle. At that point, the damage increases and it becomes circle 2. The damage always increases at the point that it connects with the white circle. At no point is circle 1 static. It is always moving from the edge of the screen until it connects and becomes circle 2. As the developers stated, this circle was not changed. No matter what, you will be taking damage at a rate of 0.4% of your health every second. That does not change at all if you are further or nearer to the edge of the blue circle. For everyone that read the patch notes saying the blue circle damage was being increased and became concerned with RNG further screwing you over at the start of the round, that's not the case at all. There's a little bit of a delay from when you jump out of the plane to when the timer first starts. The first timer is 5 minutes. At the end of that, the first circle will begin closing over a period of 5 minutes. And once it closes, you still have 3 minutes, 20 seconds to get inside that first safe zone before it starts moving again. When you are caught in the first blue circle, it is only damaging your health at 0.4% every second, which you can survive for at least 4 minutes without using meds. So not only has nothing changed at the start of the round, but you easily have 10 to 14 minutes to get inside the first safe zone. That shouldn't be a problem at all. Okay, so the first circle has closed and become circle number 2. The damage increases at the moment it closed to 0.6%, which you can still easily survive for close to 3 minutes without meds. Remember, the damage only increases once the blue circle has connected with the white circle, so you have the duration of the timer and the travel time of the circle before the damage will increase again. Once circle 2 is closed, the damage on circle 3 increases to 0.8%. Still not a big threat, you can survive it for a little over 2 minutes without meds. Circle 4 is the transitioning circle where things start to get more serious. At this point, the circle is pretty small and the damage only increases again by 0.2%, but it now moves from doing 0.8% damage to 1% damage every second. At this point, you can survive a little over a minute and a half with no meds. Now, circle 5 gets dangerous, as before it was only a 0.2% increase each circle, but here it jumps to 3 times the damage of the previous circle. Now it dishes out 3% damage every second. And you can only survive in the blue a little over 30 seconds without meds. This means you'll be stopping to use meds very frequently to make it out alive. Circle 6 increases to 5% damage every second, giving you a lifespan of 20 seconds inside the blue. Circle 7 increases to 7% damage, and at this point it will kill you in 15 seconds, which means every few steps you will have to pop a first aid kit to survive. Finally, circle number 8, the last circle, does a staggering 11 to 12% damage every second. If you have to survive outside of here, your best bet is to stay max boosted, pop a first aid kit, and then button mash bandages. But there is no amount of meds that will keep you alive out here for long. Okay, sorry if you already knew all that, but that is the base for this new circle damage, and I felt it important to go over in case this is a new player's first video on on the blue circle. So in October, the developers opened a test server that increased the blue circle dot or damage over time. And between the test server and the moment it went live, the wording in the patch notes was changed to read blue circle damage increases when characters are farther from the safe zone. So while they may have stated their purpose for the change is to get everyone into more focused firefights inside the play zone, and I think that might be part of it, this wasn't a change to necessarily alter the pacing of the game or anything like that. Ultimately, what I believe they wanted to accomplish with this change is prevent people from placing really high up by sitting at the very edge of the map and meting through the blue zone damage. You know, exactly how that guy won the entire solo competition in the first invitational. This change really doesn't affect people that want to camp the inside edge of the blue to kill people rotating into the zone. It only affects people far outside and pretty late in the game, which is why I strictly think it's intended to stop med campers out there. Alright, so that new wording left us all wondering, at what point does it increase and by how much does it increase? Is there essentially 2 new circles now, or does it gradually ramp up damage all the way to the edge of the map? Well, both, and I'm about to explain it. First, we'll go over the method of testing so you understand how the data was extracted. I spent many sleepless nights working on this, and here's how. When the change first went live, I got into a round and drove straight away from the safe zone, and then reported to you guys that my gut reaction was a second circle out there. At some point, the damage, say, doubled, but I could have been completely wrong, as it was just a gut reaction. And surprise, surprise, I was completely wrong. The first method I tried testing was taping a clear ruler with millimeters on my monitor over the health bar and recorded that with the camera as I run away from the safe zone. I was trying to see if I could physically measure a difference in the ticks of damage at different points. Well, that wasn't really working, so the second thing I tried was having Hannah drive me away from the safe zone while I recorded my screen with the map open. This way I could review the footage later and the ticks of damage to my health bar in correlation with my distance from the circle on the map. Once again, this wasn't a concrete enough method for testing, so finally I buckled up for 3 to 4 nights of drinking Mountain Dew and eating Cheetos while I die over and over and over again to different blue zones at different 100-meter markings. Can't describe to you how much time it took without help or access to private servers, but alas, I have a few answers. Now, confirmation number 1 is that yes, the damage has not changed at all on the first circle, and that is strictly referring to the first circle. Once it has closed and become circle number 2, the damage will increase the farther you get away from the play zone. But huge but here, it only increases by a maximum of 0.08% on circle 2. Yes, even if you are on the very edge of the map, the total damage you'll be taking is 0.68% instead of 0.6%. So very little changes this circle, but nonetheless, there is a change. Now for an extensive breakdown of the distances this all happens at, I decided to do all my thorough testing or base testing on circle number 4. As if I didn't hate myself enough already, I had to survive waiting over and over again until circle number 4 so I could keep dying in the blue. But I started off with a control test for each circle to make sure nothing changed, and as you already know, the base damage just outside the blue zone has stayed the same for every circle. This makes the base damage for circle 4 1%, which is a perfect number to conduct our tests off of. Now, to speed up the process and make these tests possible in the first place, I did everything off a base of 75 health rather than 100. This because with a first aid kit, I could guarantee I was setting up the exact same test each time. That way I could drive a ways out into the blue where I needed to conduct a test, pop a first aid kit to start the test from exactly the same number each time, and repeat over and over again, if that makes sense. It's very easy for us to convert this data over to 100% health when finished. So we know at 0 meters or just inside circle 4 is 1% damage, and with 75 health, this gave me a survive time of 75 seconds. For the second test, I drove 1 kilometer or 1,000 meters away from the blue circle edge, popped my first aid, and recorded dying to blue. The result was, starting from 75 health, I died in 50 seconds, which means I was taking damage at a rate of 1.5% health instead of 1% every second. So we had a 0.5% increase in damage every second at 1 kilometer away from the play zone. At this point, it certainly hasn't doubled, but there is an increase. Next, I needed to test the in-betweens. Is there a point where it shifts from 1 to 1.5% damage, or does it gradually make that change over some distance? So I conducted the same test at 500 meters out this time, half a kilometer. With 75 health, it killed me in 60 seconds, which is a damage increase of 0.25% from the base damage. Half a kilometer away from the play zone, I was taking 1.25% damage instead of 1%. Alright, this means there's clearly more than 2 circles of damage, and unfortunately for me, I need to conduct this test every 100 meters away from the circle. So I did, over and over and over again. Here are my results. At 100 meters away from the play zone, the damage is still the same. In this case, circle 4, 1% damage per second. Only once you get past 200 meters away from the play zone does the damage increase, and at this point I died in 73 seconds instead of 75, a mere 0.03% increase in damage, meaning you can survive here for 97 seconds with full health. Passing the 300 meter mark, I died in 68 seconds. The damage was now 1.1% every second, and I could survive for 91 seconds on 100 health. At 400 meters, it increases to 1.2% damage with a survive time of 83 seconds on full health. 500 meters was 1.25% damage every second. 600 meters increased to 1.36 damage per second, 700 meters it increased to 1.42% damage, and 800 meters we hit 1.5 damage a second, which was the same as 1 kilometer or 1,000 meters. There appears to be a tier or ceiling here. I retested it just to make sure, and then I went on to test 900 meters as well just to be safe, and again it was 1.5% damage at 900 meters. I also retested 100 meters to double check and confirm that it was in fact still 1% damage at 100 meters out up until around the 200 meter mark. Alright, I conducted 2 more tests on circle 4 to confirm that the damage increase I had examined was complete. I did the same test then at 1.5 kilometers away or 1500 meters and got the same result, 1.5% damage a second. And then I went as absolute far away as possible, roughly 4 kilometers, to see if someone medding up in Zarky or on Spawn Island would notice a difference, and still it was only 1.5% damage a second. So what does all this data tell us? Well, number one, as long as you are within 200 meters of the circle edge, you won't notice any difference in damage. And even then, at this point, the change is minimal. When you do start hitting the damage increase, there isn't a point where it, say, doubles necessarily. There is a definite edge to the increased damage, and that is roughly 800 meters out. If you are anywhere 800 meters or beyond from the circle edge, you will be taking the full force of the damage increase. In this case, it is only a 50% increase. You will be taking 1.5% damage instead of 1%. So again, it does not double. Now I conducted similar tests on circle 2 and confirmed a similar ramp in damage from around 200 to 800 meters, only there wasn't a 50% increase on the base damage. Instead of 0.6% becoming 0.9%, the max damage was only 0.68%. So less than a 0.1% increase. And trust me, I spent hours running every bit of data I had through every process I could think of to try and come up with a formula or definite calculation to figure out the damage based off the circle number or its base damage and distance from the edge. But even after everything I tried and graphing the data with errors, trying to adjust numbers a tiny bit in each direction to make some sort of formula line up, at the end of the day, it really feels random. Maybe someone smarter than me can make sense of these numbers though. My 2 theories are, 1, there are not definite points where it increases, but rather it is a constant increase or gradual ramp of damage from 200 to 800 meters, and I was just slightly off my marks each test, which produced inconsistent looking results. Or, for some bizarre reason, there is no formula at all, it's somewhat randomly predetermined numbers, and my excuse for that would be maybe Bluehole just wants everyone to fear the blue zone and see it as a threat, but not fully understand it. Because potentially they think the only reason people would want to understand it would be so they can med up and survive outside it. I doubt that, because in reality, I can speak for most of us that want to know it. It's not so we can survive living inside of it, but rather when RNG does screw us over, how much time do we have to loot, find a vehicle, take this firefight, revive a friend, etc. Alright, I did one last test that I find really interesting. I went 800 meters outside of circle 5. the circle after 4, which deals 3% damage every second. And remember how the final circle deals roughly 12% damage every second, which is the max damage a circle deals? Well, at 800 meters out from the edge of circle number 5, I took damage at 12% per second, the same as the final circle. It totally caught me off guard, as that is a 4 times increase from the base damage of 3%. The previous circle only had a max of 0.5% increase. It even played the hit sound effect that you hear each tick inside the final blue circle. So basically, anyone surviving far outside the play zone will immediately die on circle 5. There was no surviving it, especially because at this point you have already been taking damage and using meds. Now, if circle 5 carries over the same sort of ramp up from 200 to 800 meters, that is going to be a pretty dangerous ramp or increase of damage. You do not want to be more than 200 meters away from circle 5 when it hits. Okay, as I wrap up the results of my testing, I will review everything we can now confirm. 1. The first circle does in fact have no increase in damage no matter where you are on the map. It stays at 0.4% every second. Number 2. As soon as the first circle connects and becomes the second circle, the 200 to 800 meter increased damage ramp exists, but it is very, very, very minor with a max damage of 0.68% instead of 0.6 every second. Number 3, the damage increase does not begin until around the 200 meter mark. Therefore, you are relatively safe or can expect the normal base damage anywhere near the edge of the blue circle or within 200 meters. Number 4, the damage increase does have a cutoff point. Blue circle damage does not increase all the way to the edge of the map or even to 1 kilometer. Once you hit approximately 800 meters or beyond, you are receiving the full force of the increase or the max damage that blue circle will dish out. Number 5, and I did not mention this earlier as it's probably a given, but after testing, the distance from the blue circle is the only distance that matters in regards to the increase. For instance, just because you are nearer to the white circle here, you will be taking the same damage, the 400 meter increase, as you would be right over here. The only reason this would matter is because we all know this side is going to close much faster and suddenly it's going to put you more than 400 meters away, dealing out even more damage per second. But apart from that mechanic, distance to the white circle does not matter in regards to the increase. Number 6, the max increase of damage is minimal up through circle 4. At this point, you're only taking a 0.5% max increase in damage. Rather than surviving a minute 40, you would survive a minute 7 seconds at the 800 meter mark. A decent difference in time, but still more than enough to make something happen and still double the survive time of circle 5's base damage, which is 3% or 33 seconds of survival. Finally, number 7, getting caught far outside circle number 5 will be your demise as it ticks for the max 12% health a second. I'm very thrilled to be able to bring you guys this information and clear some things up for us, but I'm running low on Hot Pockets and Mountain Dew. It took me 40 plus hours to make this video, 3 to 4 all-nighters just dying to blue, and nearly 100 gigabytes of game footage. For those reasons and a couple more, I wanted to end my data collecting here and post an update for you guys. Both with an interview of Brendan Green and reading what the developers have been saying, it does not sound like this change will be final or is a long-term adjustment/solution. Reactions have been quite polarizing, and they pitch it as more of a test for a mechanic that needs an overhaul. With all of that being said, I expect the blue circle to change again soon, possibly with the 1.0 release or shortly after. Therefore, I don't want to use too much time and effort on a very temporary mechanic. Honestly, it's super awesome to have some facts, but none of this should change your gameplay too much. Time management remains important just like it did before. RNG can really mess you up, just like it did before. I think one of the best fixes to speed up the pacing of the game would be to do whatever you want to the circles, make them a bigger threat however you wish, and then incorporate a system that spawns more vehicles the farther you are from the circle generation. So anyone near or inside the circle with good placement will be less likely to have a vehicle and spend more time on foot, and anyone caught far outside the circle and have to travel a long distance will be able to compress into the play zone quickly with a vehicle. That should remove a little more of the RNG factor and increase the skill play a tiny bit. Just an idea though. But I still love this game, and I will be making some videos to help you guys with time and circle management, so stay tuned for those. Now, honestly, my sincerest apologies to anyone upset by the data I presented. I'm not too happy that I have to leave this without finding a formula or equation for the damage ramp, but I poured so much time and effort into this already that I gotta move on to other things. At this point, we can all go one of 4 directions. Actually 5. The 5th being we could all just be content with this information until the next time they change the circle. But option 1 would be someone that actually gets paid to do this or has a following and access to private servers could much more easily figure this out. It was so difficult having to conduct these tests on live random servers, so I would be more than happy to point you guys to someone else's information if that happens. Second option is if for some reason this gets a ton of attention and you guys are begging for more data to complete the examination and do every circle at every exact distance, you know what? I will buckle up again in the hot seat, maybe recruit some help from you guys, load up on Cheetos and Mountain Dew, and figure absolutely every number out for you guys. Heck, maybe I'll even live stream it and just have 24 hours straight of me eating Cheetos, drinking Mountain Dew, and dying to the blue zone over and over and over again. But again, that's only if there's a huge demand. Third option would be if someone is somehow able to data mine the actual numbers they're using to generate the blue circle damage. Not sure if that's possible or legal though. And then the 4th and best option would be if Bluehole would just tell us, like, please tell us. If it's a major mechanic of the game, we need to understand it. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. My goodness, it was a mouthful. I might make a separate video with strictly the numbers for you guys, but I really thought it important to show my method for testing in case anyone wants to take the data I collected and run with it or run additional tests themselves. In the meantime, I gotta go to the store and restock on Mountain Dew. Until the next video, I'll see you guys on the Battlegrounds.